he produces, but not to be the number 3 in Dynasty, number 5 in redraft. That in redraft just blows my mind. There's no way I have Jahmyr Gibbs as number 5 in a redraft. No way, because I don't think Jordan Montgomery misses 6 games or whatever he missed this year, number 1. Now, this is a hard pill to swallow, but you got to have a set of cojones to do this, because I think you could get the world for Jahmyr Gibbs right now.
Yeah, you could.
I think you can basically get anything you want.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Guys on Sports. It is the 3 of us, a different panel from last week. Go check out last week's episode. We talked about a lot of cool, informative things.
Super cool.
Today we're going right into Dynasty, which I'm getting a lot of experience in Dynasty. I've been playing the last few years, won a few championships myself in a league that we're actually in.
Take it easy.
We are...
won one. You won one.
Yeah, I've got a 50-50 shot right now,
I mean, did he win that year?
Sorry,
Because
I don't want to get us. That was I don't know why I did that. We're going to get right into it today. We are going to talk about 2 players that you should trade for in your Dynasty leagues and 2 players you should trade away in your Dynasty league. So you've got 2 times 3 times 2 because it's to trade away and to trade for. So we're going to do that for you. We've got no TikTok take today, but continue to comment, continue to engage with us online at GON Podcast, wherever you currently browse the internet. Before we get into the first player that Phil will talk about, a little word from our partner, our sponsor of today's episode, CHALKBOARD. If you're not doing any CHALKBOARD, you definitely should. Click the link in the bio, scan the QR code on screen. You get an entirely free app with 300 plus members in what we kind of consider like a Discord meets Reddit, just total 24/7 fantasy football, Q&A, advice, cheat sheets, start sits, pick'ems. It's all there for you. It helps out the show. It definitely helps out you, because I always say fantasy football is better when you have multiple opinions that you can decide from. And that's what we're going to give you today. So join CHALKBOARD. We would appreciate it.
All right, so kicking this off with the guys you want to trade for, and I do want to add on to what you were saying. This is for the guys we're trading for me, and I think for everybody in the Dynasty format. There's a lot of things to take into account. You're talking about age, probably contract, situation, obviously, as always, but it's more of a long-term view. And I think you also have to factor in the guy's value, like we always do, and that's always something I'm focusing on. So for me, first guy I'm going to highlight is Zach Moss. We've talked about him a little bit in the offseason, and you're going to be thinking, oh, Zach Moss, running back. That guy, he's not a rookie, right? This is Dynasty. He's not a rookie. Zach Moss is only 26, and he has not had a starter's load yet. He has had a few injuries, but he looked like he bounced back pretty well. Looked good last year. And for Zach Moss, I think stepping into a role where an average back, I think we'd all agree, who should have been more than average. And Joe Mixon was productive last year. What did Joe Mixon finish? His RB5 last year?
Maybe
in some formats, maybe 6.
He finished there because of the load, which is, I think, is your point.
Yeah. To me, Zach Moss last season, if you looked at him, eye test with Joe Mixon, he looked like the better runner. And in a situation where I still expect them to score points. They do still have Joe Burrow, but they have a compromised Joe Burrow, at least coming into the season. We don't really know. With hopefully an improved offensive line, I'm thinking they're going to want to lean on Zach Moss a little bit. And I know they brought a young guy in, but I'm still confident about Zach Moss. And here's the big thing. He's not very high valued right now. If you're looking at his ADP in redrafts, his rankings for all the guys in your league that are doing their last-minute homework and seeing where he's ranked, he's in the 80s overall. He's like the 28th running back. I think for a running back that's probably going to get close to the volume that Joe Mixon had, who I think looked better than him last year, that's a guy I want to trade for that. I could probably get him pretty cheap. Yeah. So that's the other thing to keep in mind when you're making these trades or when we're giving you these suggestions is that I think for the trade guys, unless there's somebody that you guys have that's highly coveted, This is like, one of those deals where you're going to get, like low risk, high reward type of deal.
Going in the value bin a little bit,
Yeah, I mean,
Picking
Zach
and
Moss,
seeing.
Well, I think if like in most leagues, if you had Joe Mixon, you could probably trade Joe Mixon for Zach Moss
And
a pick.
Exactly.
And I think Zach Moss is probably signed for cheaper.
Yep.
And I think you've got upside, and then you gain a free pick out of it.
I think he's going to outscore Joe Mixon. I think Zach Moss is going to outscore Joe Mixon because I think there's too many mouths to feed in Houston, and that is going to. I'll touch on that later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Houston, we have a problem. Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Rocky?
Bad. Yeah, so I'm going to start off with everybody's favorite massage getter.
Therapist?
Massage man.
Oh, man. I'm
Massage
putting
man.
that. I wish it was.
Yeah, you should be there.
Yeah.
It'll be there.
Deshaun Watson. And here's why. Much like what you said. So, like, I threw out in a couple leagues I'm in, and I was able to trade Gardner Minshew for Deshaun Watson
That's criminal.
and a pick.
That's criminal.
In another league, I was able to trade Will Levis, and I got Deshaun and a pick. And now, you might make the case that...
What leagues are you in?
yeah. Well, I mean, these are highly competitive leagues, but
Highly competitive.
Super competitive.
people are incredibly down on Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
But in 2020, and I know this is ancient history right now, 2020, he was the QB1 12 out of the 16 weeks of the season.
I remember he almost carried me to a championship.
Yeah, he had one bad game, which was a weather game in Cleveland, which should have been maybe the albatross that Cleveland shouldn't have traded for him. But
Yeah,
we won't go
foreshadowing.
there. The idea is that you're probably not going to have Deshaun as your number one. You're going to have another quarterback. So if you can trade for a quarterback that had huge upside before and could have it again, I think you got to do it. And I was able to pick up a second round pick twice. And in our leagues, second round, I'm probably picking up a Lad McConkey or another good young receiver. Maybe I'm getting Jonathan Brooks, who people are afraid of, and they're letting him slip. So to me, Deshaun Watson is a candidate. He will rebound some, even if he doesn't return to the 4,800-yard, 35-touchdown performance. He's going to be a great number 2 quarterback, and you can get him for next to nothing.
Yeah. What's his current contract? He's got 3 more years?
Yeah, so he's got this in 2 years.
Yeah. So that's what I look for as well in quarterbacks. Speaking of quarterbacks, speaking of the AFC, I'm going to kind of tell the story of a quarterback that is very high risk, but could also be high reward. And a guy that I'm considering trading for in my Dynasty League, Justin Fields. Didn't think this was going to be the pick for me, but after looking at it and thinking about it, I do think Justin Fields is a good trade for candidate in Dynasty for a few different reasons. Him and Russell Wilson are both essentially on 1-year deals. Justin Fields is finishing up his rookie contract, and Russ is, trying to buy time at this point. Russ injury happens. Russ bad performance happens. The Steelers offense is mid like we've seen over the last 10 years. They might go to a Justin Fields for a spark. So he might see playing time this year, or he might be a career backup. That's the risk of this part of the trade. But Justin Fields last year, although the Bears ditched him for Caleb Williams, which no one blames the Bears for, he had his best in passing yards, his best in passer rating, and touchdown interception ratio of his entire career so far. So I see the glimpse of what could be the future with Justin Fields. Now he's got a defense in Pittsburgh to complement his run game, and just him being a better passer, as we've seen trending upwards throughout 3 seasons now. His stock is extremely low, so you don't have to trade a lot. No one right now is looking to trade for Justin Fields, at least in the circles that I'm in. And I think it's perfect for tanking teams or just allowing yourself to set up for the rebuild of next year. I'm heavily considering, and I might be a little crazy for this, and this is an opinion that I would value from you guys. I was offered to trade Brock Purdy away for Justin Fields in a first. I'm a tanking team in my Dynasty League, and this might be a good situation that I want to talk to the internet about, because if you don't need Justin Fields to start, but he could potentially sign with a team next year, and then you're getting a first-round pick, I mean...
Yeah,
So wait, what was the trade again?
So you're saying you are not like your team. You don't think has it this year.
My team my team is tanking.
Yeah, so I would do it 100.
If
100
you're
out of 100.
Yeah, like if you're a tanking team, then you should trade for Justin Fields. There is little risk this year because of he might play, he might not play. We've seen what he can do when he's on the field, especially from a fantasy perspective. And then getting an extra first-round pick for next year, I mean, that's what you should look at when trading for Justin Fields.
Well, and I think if you're in a dynasty league that is kind of weighted more toward the rookie draft, you would be insane. I mean, you should know about midseason, is it realistic that I'm winning this all?
Yep.
And if I'm not, or if I'm maybe at best mid or below mid, every year I trade any asset I have for future draft picks. And that's just kind of how I constantly
Constantly almost wins.
Yeah, right.
No,
Yeah.
that's fair.
He's like the Steelers or the Packers. They're like kind of
the
always
Bills
around
contention
the Bills.
seasons,
Sometimes.
yeah.
But yeah, so trade for Justin Fields on the low, especially if you're a tanking team or you're getting ready to reset for a rebuild. I like that trade.
I do
Fair. Okay, so I'll jump right into it. My second guy is another youngin' by the name of Jaden Reed.
Big Jaden Reed podcast.
Jaden Reed's season last year was a tale of opportunity. Okay?
Nice. Yeah.
So
Poetic.
coming into the season, he's ranked both in Dynasty. This is for Fantasy Pros, both Dynasty and Redraft as the 30th wide receiver. Last season, he finished as a top 12 in 33% of his games, or as we call it around here, third of his games, and he was ranked fourth in fantasy points per snap. So
Pretty good.
what that tells me is that if Jaden Reed has more opportunity, Jaden Reed is going to outproduce his current value. Pretty simple math. I think we all think that he's going to kind of come out this season as their top wide receiver. Green Bay, I think, is a top 12. I think they're the 12th passing offense last year. I think they're 11th in total offense. Another year of Jordan Love maturing. I think Jaden Reed is going to become his go-to guy. And what I love about him is that unlike Christian Watson, who I still think is going to have a solid year, and unlike Dontavian Wickle, whatever his name is, right? Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Dobbs,
Jesus Christ.
they scheme the ball in his hands.
Yeah, they do, man.
They run screens for him. They run
Bubble screens, baby.
Yeah, they run. They want to get him the ball in space. I think he's going to be even more of a point. And yeah, I just think it goes along with his stats here. 25% target rate per route run. So that means he's running 4 routes, he's getting targeted on one of them. That means almost every time they run an offensive set, he's getting a crack at the ball before they get a first down. You can almost count on it, unless they're punting. So, I mean, and he didn't play as much as some of the other guys. So I love Jaden Reed, and I think he's going to be wide receiver 1 that you're going to get at like a wide receiver 30 value.
Yeah, hopefully those league mates don't watch this show because, like, since the dawn of time of draft day, or really like draft month before draft day, we were banging the drum on Jaden Reed.
Yeah.
I've been saying this for more than a year now, and I'll keep saying it. He's the next Jordy Nelson, Devonte Adams in Green Bay. I mean,
Who's the next Aaron Rodgers?
Jordan Love. I mean, all these guys that get drafted and sit behind the quarterback that's of the now. The wide receiver that gets drafted in the second round that no one talks about ends up being the Jordy Nelson, Devonte Adams. I mean,
You realize that Devonte Adams 31?
yeah, he's old.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Time
I think
flies.
I was looking because, Amari Cooper is holding out, and I was wondering, man, he's making $20 million a year. Is he right to think he deserves more? And as I looked, he is right.
Yeah.
Because he's younger than Adams, younger than Mike Evans, who just signed a bigger contract.
Yeah.
He is just turned 30, had his best season in both yardage and receptions. So wide receivers, but I was shocked when I found out that
Yeah, me
Devonte
too.
Adams was 31.
Yeah.
That made me feel old.
You know who else is old? Tyreek Williams.
Tyreek Williams, that's not a
Or
person.
sorry, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, sorry.
We look like we
he's
have,
about
like,
to be 31 too.
Yeah, he doesn't look it though.
No, he doesn't, and he doesn't show a loss.
And
of
the
step.
thing about Tyreek Hill, he's naturally, I think, a freak of nature, but I also think he
work.
He trains really hard. Yeah.
Well,
There's something about Tyreek Hill.
Something about him.
well, there's
Explosive.
his style.
Bad locker room guy. So who's your guy?
All right, my guy is another wide receiver, and I am incredibly high on this guy.
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Williams. No, sorry. Second time I messed up, but no. George
You could have played that off, man.
Yeah, I did. Well, I actually messed up on purpose and still played it off poorly. But
Yeah, self-sabotage.
yeah, George Pickens, and here's what I love about George Pickens. The last 2 seasons, he had 106 targets and 89 targets, and in both of those seasons, he finished over 1,000 yards and 5 and 4 touchdowns. And this is what I saw last year. In games when Deontay was not in, there was 4 games, his target share went up almost to 30%, and he averaged 17 fantasy points per game.
That's pretty good.
Pittsburgh did not replace Deontay. They did draft Roman, a receiver. I think they drafted him in the 3rd round.
Roman Candle, something.
Roman, I want to say Williams. but I'm
Roman
not sure.
Reigns.
Good check.
So he's a good receiver, but he's more of a project. They don't have an elite tight end. They had decent tight ends.
Hey, Pat Fryermuth, man.
I
Top
like
8 tight
Pat.
end.
I like Pat, but he's not an elite tight end. And so to me, I think this is a perfect setup for a great season. And all of what he did last year, his stat line was 109 targets, 106, which was incredibly low. He caught 70 of them, 1,140 yards and 5 touchdowns. And he did that in the 4th worst passing offense in the league.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, it will be better. I think George Pickens is a guy that you can get on the cheap. Again, in one of my leagues, I traded, and now all of a sudden I'm being offered a ton.
One of my leagues.
Yeah, one of my leagues. Anyway, so George Pickens, it's a must trade for.
There you go. Yeah, I like this pick. And also the vibes are the nice sprinkle on top because he is that offense when they need something. He is like the spark that keeps them alive. So yeah, George Pickens.
And
That
deep
was
cut, do
poetic.
you know that he's related to Bo Jackson?
Oh, I did not know
He's
that.
the great nephew of Bo Jackson.
Doesn't mean shit.
Royalty.
Royalty. Browns royalty.
Wow.
Alrighty, well, my second trade for candidate in Dynasty Leagues is Tajay Spears. Another guy, kind of like Jaden Reed, that like we've been pretty right about since they've become NFL relevant. I think you can convince people in your leagues that Pollard is the lead guy and Spears will play backup until his rookie deal ends and he's playing for another team. I think you can seriously tell people that you can trade away your Spears stock because Pollard just signed and blah, 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 blah. He's going to be the lead back. I really think it's a timeshare. I think Spears gets a lot of Pollard's touches. And the icing on the cake for me is that Spears last year had 100 rushing attempts and 4.5 yards per carry behind King Derrick Henry. So you knew if you're the defense playing the Titans that the ball is being ran. And behind Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears still did well. 100 rushing attempts and 4.5 yards a carry. It just screams promise to me. I think him and Chigaquankwo are like the young bucks that are going to benefit from like the old heads on offense that are around him. So like all the wide receivers, whether it be Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, that offensive line. Will Levis is going to throw to Chig, in my opinion, and he's going to dump it off to Spears. It's pretty clear cut for me. I don't think you have to trade a lot for him. You might have to give like a 2nd round pick or something like that, see what the other team needs, but I'm looking to trade for Tajay Spears.
Well, and I think Spears has, to me, he kind of compares a little bit to DeAndre Swift or Jamar Gibbs. He's got that. Like when he touches the ball, he does have the possibility of breaking something big.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of him.
I just love you can throw smoke screens because he was sitting behind Derrick Henry and now he's sitting behind Tony Pollard, who Tony Pollard had good year, and then he also just got paid. So you can kind of finagle your way into a conversation and sweeten the deal because this guy is not a prominent back in fantasy yet. So you can trade for him now before he is.
Well, and again, in a dynasty, Pollard's probably a 1-year experiment.
Yes.
The way they structured that contract, they can get out of it really easily the year. So even if it's not a breakout this year, you could be padding your roster for next.
All right, cool. So those are the 6 players that we would trade for in Dynasty. Now to flip that coin, we're going to talk about 2 players each for Dynasty trades that you should make because you want to get rid of these guys. You are trading away these players. Phil, the floor is yours.
Alrighty, so here we go. I don't know how to say this because I don't want you to think I'm saying this name, Stephon Diggs, that means I think Stephon Diggs sucks. But what I do think,
bro doesn't know ball,
is that his value won't be higher than it is right now. And even if it is, he might come out and have 3 touchdowns week 1. I still think by the end of the season, his value will be lower than it is right now. Stephon Diggs last year finished as wide receiver 10 overall, but he only averaged about 13 points a game. That's not Stephon Diggs' number. I mean, if we started listing wide receivers right now, Stephon Diggs, I don't think would fall into the top 15.
Well, it's definitely not league winning, I think is the point.
Not. And from week 10 on, it was about seven points a game.
Now he's on his 3rd team.
Yep.
Now, flash forward. I think people are really excited because it's a name. Going to the Texans. Texans were great last year. Let's assume that Stroud and them boys don't have a sophomore slump, right? Let's say they continue to ascend. He's stepping into an offense with 3 guys that had 270 targets last year, 271 to be exact, and I'm not even including one of the receivers. That's just Nico, that's Tank, that's Schultz. If I add Joe Mixon in there, that's 52 receptions he had with the Bengals. I couldn't grab his target number before I got on here, but they targeted their running back 71 times. The Texans did. You have Mixon coming in there just with 52 receptions. I'm sure he probably got targeted plus 71 times to get to that number. So for me, can he be a good player? Yes. Maybe he's serviceable at his current value. Yeah, sure. But what you could get from him based on the hype coming into the season?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll talk all day about he's the number 1 option there, but he's not.
Yeah.
Like, he might have the most targets still, maybe, but they're going to disperse that between those guys, and it's going to be so much sharing in that room. I mean, he hasn't seen a target share like this since Minnesota when Thielen was in his prime, and it's going to be even more watered down. So, like I said, before they ever touch the field, go cash in your Stephon Diggs ticket. Go get you maybe a back of the 1st round pick from somebody. Go get you a wide. Like, flip it because you're going to regret having him, I think, by the end of the season. And I think even if we, like, talking Dynasty, even if he performs well this season, going forward, the guy, he's kind of getting up there in age too, and you're just going to get more return for your dollar.
So who are you targeting? Because, like, I agree with everything you're saying, and the biggest reason why I think you should get rid of Diggs is the team that he was around all last season, who is in a win-now mode, traded him.
Yes.
Without any sheer, like, they got
They replaced him
Keon
with
Coleman.
They replaced. It's like a Traylon Burks, AJ Brown situation potentially.
Yeah, and now they were wrong about AJ Brown.
Yeah.
I don't think they're wrong about this. I think that they saw something. I think the last 10 games. So, but I do. Each one of us in our leagues, we have those teams that when you wave Diggs in front of them,
Dangle a carrot.
yeah, they're going to jump. So, like, who would you go for? A 1st round pick, and I agree with that. And like,
If I could get a 1st round pick out of somebody, I mean, first of all, I'm going to try to get whatever I can get. Sure. But realistically, I think with the right person, you could probably get a low, not a high 1st round pick, but a low 1st round pick, and you probably get like a
something
wide receiver with upside.
I could get a Zach Moss probably.
Zach Moss, or you might be able to get a Drake London or a Quentin Johnson.
I don't know if
Maybe
you get
not
a Drake. Maybe
well,
straight up.
Depending it is. Or
Quentin Johnson you could get with a pick.
Maybe Jordan Addison. Maybe a receiver that has that upside and a pick.
I think you can if you don't. Yeah. I think the picks, like with a guy like Jordan Addison, I think that pick slides down to the 2nd. But I think, it depends on who you're talking to.
Like a Quentin Johnson,
I think,
like a Josh Downs.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Quentin Johnson is a receiver, and
He is.
He didn't make my top 2, but he is another one that I'm targeting because I think you get him for cheap.
Yeah.
And he has a ton of potential upside.
I say if you could trade him just straight up for a top 4 pick, I'd do that too because I'll go grab Malik Neighbors. Yeah. No bias, but I grab him. I don't think your guy would be there.
No.
But
Harrison, you might get Caleb Williams.
I think if you get Harrison and Neighbors, I'm fine as a fiddle on a rookie contract for the next 3 to 4 years. Yeah. I don't even think twice about it.
Well, and the thing is, you're not saying Diggs won't have another 1,000-yard season.
He might.
1,000-yard season in a 17-game season.
It's almost nothing now.
It's like 67 yards a game.
Who did we just talk about? You just said somebody that said they had a 1,000-yard season, and I was like, oh,
Pickens.
Did he really? Pickens, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, like I said, that's what it means now. And then, but the thing is that we're seeing this happen. We've seen the peak. This is happening. So even if he comes out hot, I still see it going this way. And I think in Dynasty, the number one thing with your trade is timing. Because Stephon Diggs today, Stephon Diggs a year ago, Stephon Diggs a year from now, 3 different players, 3 different values. One of them could be you getting dirt, and one of them could be you're changing your starting roster.
Yep.
Last thing I'd say is that Nico Collins is the guy you want in the Texans wide receiving room.
Agreed.
Just throwing that out there.
All right, so my first player that you should trade is a lot like what you just said. And again, I'm not saying this guy won't have a productive season. What I'm saying is you can get a lot for him. And he's a running back, and there's a clear delineation. Like in the 80s and even the early to mid-90s, teams rode their running backs, probably even up to like the Zeke, early 2010s. Even.
Yeah, early 2010s probably when it ended.
In the history of football, in the last 13 years.
Back in my day.
In the last 13 years, no running back has compiled more rushing attempts than this guy over a 4-year span, and that's Derrick Henry. He had 1,219 attempts over the last 4 years. Now, he's also past 29, which I don't like because there's only been
the age cliff.
There's only been these backs. In fact, the only backs that averaged more than 15 points per game, fantasy points, were Matt Forte, Arian Foster, LaShawn McCoy. And all of them did it because they caught passes. All of them were exceptional pass catchers. In fact, Forte, he averaged 6.4 receptions a game. Foster averaged 5.5. And McCoy averaged over 4. So there's just too many things that say Derrick could regress this year. Last year, 4.2 yard average sounds good. It's his lowest total in probably the last 4 years.
I mean, his body's like 3 yards.
Yeah, his body. Yeah,
yeah,
you're
that's
right.
fair.
He's just breaking down, and so could he have a big season? Yeah, I do think he's going to be fine, but I don't think all of a sudden he's going to start catching a ton more passes, especially not in an offense where Lamar Jackson routinely looks to run.
Oh,
first.
you're looking. If you have Henry on your roster this year, you're touchdown dependent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your touchdown. If he's not scoring a touchdown, you're looking at an 8-point day. Like it's
and
one
20% of the touchdowns last year, or 20% of the red zone rushes were Lamar last year.
Yeah.
And I don't see how that changes.
If you have Derrick Henry, you're a contender. And if you're wishy-washy, middle of the road, get rid of this guy. If you keep Derrick Henry on your dynasty team this year, you have him until he retires. You won't be able to trade away Derrick Henry year 2 in Baltimore. I do not see that happening.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I just think, again, you can get something for him right now.
Yes.
And again, similar to what like we were talking about possible trade packages, I think you get a late first-round pick.
Yeah.
And a good possibility.
Well, something.
Yeah. So.
All right, cool. Well,
something.
I'm going to actually talk about my second guy first because this is a decent segue of running backs.
Tricky.
Okay,
And
we have another guy.
this is going to sound a little crazy, but hear me out. Trade away Kyron Williams. Why will you trade away Kyron Williams?
I'm with you.
Well, let's just look at what Sean McVay's done in his entire coaching career, perhaps. Even Todd Gurley gets tossed out when an injury happens or when the next wrinkle of an offense happens, whether that be a Puka Nacua or like a Cooper Kupp emergence or X, Y, and Z, getting rid of Jared Goff, keeping Jared Goff. Stuff changes. And running backs have short leashes in LA with Sean McVay. Kyren Williams has already, in his first 3 career years, has had a high ankle sprain, and now in real time has a foot issue that will make him miss all of OTA. That's what the reports are currently. His stock only goes down. This screams depreciating asset to me. I think it's a player people don't think is like a fire sale guy, so you have leverage in trades. It's not the middle of the season where Blake Corum's, cutting into his touches, where Puka and Cooper Kupp are running the show and Kyren Williams is second fiddle. God forbid another, not even like a high ankle sprain, like he's had like a tweak in the knee, or his foot flares up because it's already taken him out of OTAs before the season even starts. Like, there's stuff that's happening right now with Kyren, just in general as a running back, that I don't like. And the fact that he's in LA right now is just extra for me to get rid of this guy while you can get a haul, because Kyren Williams, people are thinking, oh, like year 2, year 3 running back that was electric when he played like the 12 games he played last year. Yeah, I'll give a first and X, Y, and Z for him. I'm doing that trade.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. I fear his size a little bit.
Oh, yo.
To me, I think he is a back that's potential that he could get injured.
It's already happened.
Yeah, it happened. And I think he could be that back. And the other back that I think is comparable, the guy in Miami.
Devonte Chain.
Yeah, everybody's super high on the guy. I see why, but he's tiny.
I just, if this is redraft, it's a different story. For Dynasty, I think this is a guy that you can definitely capitalize on the fact that there really isn't anything bad happening right now in the offseason, but a guy that I'm looking to trade with the second I can, to be honest with you.
I agree with that.
And I also do feel like Blake Corum's got some cooking to do in LA. I feel that in my bones just a little bit. So
I think you have to give Blake a look at the goal line at the very least, and he could still some,
he's taking touches at least. But yeah, that's my TED talk on Kyren Williams.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when we talked about the NFC West, he was one of my LVPs. Sean McVay, they didn't go out and get this guy for a reason.
3rd round too.
All right, so from one running back to another, a more highly touted running back. And I will say a guy that everywhere I look is being touted as a surefire, elite RB1 this year. What's the word I'm looking for? Lock-in, top shelf RB1 again in 2024. But I think where he finished was just right at low end RB1.
Yep.
So they're projecting a little bit, a lot of our contemporaries out there. And I'm not going to argue with what they're saying. I don't think this is a question about skill with Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think it's a question about how explosive he is. I don't think he's going to get worse next year. And they also admit that David Montgomery is not going anywhere after David Montgomery returned. In the first 7 to 8 weeks of the season, David Montgomery is a top 5 running back. And when he came back from injury, Gibbs was still limited to about 14 touches a game, 73 total yards a game, which is good. And I could project him for more if Montgomery wasn't still in that backfield, but I think he still is. And based on where Jahmyr Gibbs is ranked right now, is the consensus is RB5 in redraft and 3 in Dynasty. For me, I think what we seen last year, I think we see a tick more because I think we see a tick more of opportunity for him. And then it'll probably kick up a notch once Montgomery's out of the picture. But I don't think we ever see the days where Jahmyr Gibbs is getting 22-plus touches on a consistent basis. He's dealing with a soft tissue injury now. Probably nothing. But he's a slider guy. I don't like there's a guy like Jamal Charles that kind of fits his build, but Jamal Charles was built different. He's a bigger body, more durable player. I still think that we're kind of seeing where Gibbs is at, where I think maybe a 17-touch guy, mix it pass and catch, and he produces, but not to be the number 3 in Dynasty, number 5 in redraft. I mean, that in redraft just blows my mind. There's no way I'm taking. I have Jahmyr Gibbs as number 5 in the redraft. No way. I don't think he produces the way he did last year because I don't think Jordan Montgomery misses 6 games or whatever he missed this year, number 1. And I don't know. Maybe I'm blind to this, but I just don't see that value there. So
yeah.
Now this is a hard pill to swallow, but you got to have a set of cojones to do this because I think you could get the world for Jahmyr Gibbs right now.
Yeah, you could.
I think you can basically get anything you want almost.
Yeah.
And if you think you could go get another running back and you think you want a first-round pick and you want a wide receiver too, I mean, it takes a little bit of guts, but I think you could really turn around your team. Maybe you're a guy that your team sucks. Not pointing you out.
Hey,
but
man.
you're a guy that your team sucks and you were able to draft Gibbs last year and you're still on the come-up. You could turn Gibbs into a couple picks and a starting player, and I think you could make that trade.
Yeah.
And I think even if Gibbs is good, I don't think he's ever dynasty player number 3 or even maybe running back number. I don't know, maybe.
Unless like Montgomery has like a career-ending injury or they decide to change up what they've done for like the last forever years with Dan Campbell. Like the Jamal Williams of the world and the David Montgomerys of the world are the ones that benefit the most in that backfield. And you have the best value in fantasy for those guys. Dynasty, I can see a little bit of it to see like maybe something happens where Jahmyr Gibbs does become like the lead back. But if he's not the lead back, then I don't see trading for this guy. And I don't see keeping this guy or drafting him in fantasy. So yeah, I would try and get away from him.
Even if he does become that guy, Montgomery's gone. He's into his 3rd year. He's already a year away from a contract year. And I still don't think that I still think they bring another back in.
Absolutely. In
and
fact,
that's what they do. Yeah.
He's not like Saquon.
Yeah.
I hate him. But they're going to give him.
they're going to ride him.
They're going to ride him.
Oh, yeah,
They're
baby.
not doing that with Gibbs. I don't think they're ever doing that with Gibbs. I just don't think he's built for it.
No, I mean, you look at his stats.
Give me JT right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, JT's a bigger back.
I know. I'm saying give me JT over Gibbs right now. I think I value him higher in Dynasty than I do Gibbs right now.
At most of his production, because Gibbs averaged 15.7 fantasy points a game. But he had this stretch, and the stretch happened when Montgomery was down. He had 26, 31, 25, 20, 26, and 24 fantasy points. Mm-hmm. But even in those games, 15 carries, 11, 11, 11, 14, 8, 11. He only had one where he carried over 20 times. No. He isn't built. So what happened last year?
You're small.
Small, bro. You even lift, bro?
Bro's small.
He's a short prince, and I give it to you because he does perform. But last year they didn't pick up another running back because they knew David Montgomery was coming back. Mm-hmm. This year, if Montgomery goes down with a bad injury, you know who they're calling? They're calling Kareem Hunt. They're calling another back like that's got something left, that's a bigger back, and they're spelling him. I think you're right. You can almost name your price right now for him. Yeah. And I would do it. I like this.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Shout out to all of our short princes. No disrespect.
No disrespect.
There will be a graphic of Rocky crowning Jahmyr Gibbs.
Hey,
as a 3-foot
can I crown
prince. Down.
All right, my second guy is now we're switching to wide receiver. It's a guy near and dear to me. I love the Ohio State Buckeye players, but I'm calling out McClaren.
Yeah, get fucked. Your last name is wrong.
I have a friend named McClaren. Teddy McLaurin. Scary Terry.
Scary McLaurin.
He has produced decent target share, 139 and 130 the last 2 seasons. But this offense scares me a little bit, and here's why. You got a rookie quarterback who's a better runner than a passer. He's going to have to figure it out. And so when he does
he's lefty too.
Pass, and when he does pass, he's probably going to be throwing to Austin Eckler or Diami Brown or Jahan Dotson.
Old man Austin Eckler.
The slots. Yeah. In addition, they picked up a receiver that's a little bit like he's under the radar, but who I think can really produce, and that's Luke McCaffrey. part of the CMC family.
Interesting.
I think he's going to be worked in pretty quickly.
Just
as
a real good
slot receiver.
real good locker room
I
guy.
just don't think that Jaden Daniels, as a rookie, is going to be throwing deeper passes or intermediate routes as often as they have in the past. And I think Terry's going to take he's going to take a hit to his production. And that's even before we talk about the fact that they added Austin Eckler. I like Zach Ertz as a tight end. I love Ben Sinnott, their rookie tight end. I think he is another low-key must-draft if you're looking for a tight end. So, again, Terry's a great receiver. He has produced, but I think he's going to take a step back this year. So I would trade while you can.
Yeah, it's weird because like Terry McLaurin has always been a wide receiver that I respect from like a skill position. Like he's a good wide receiver, but in fantasy, he just is like a guy I would never want on my team because you can't ever trust it.
10.
You just can't trust that you're going to get the same production from him. And the Commanders stink. That includes Austin Eckler. And I agree with this take.
All right, exactly.
We're in agreement. Jeez.
The last player that we were going to talk about as far as players to trade away in your dynasty leagues, this to me screams depreciating asset. This player screams to me good fit for another team that's not mine, Dalton Schultz. We've already talked about the Houston Texans and the mouths to feed. We've talked about Stephon Diggs. I think this is a perfect guy that you can trade away to a contending team that needs a tight end or has the tight end bonuses, like the 1.5 receptions, like one of my dynasty leagues does. He's in a 3-year deal. Through that 3-year deal that he signed with the Texans, Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell are all supposedly supposed to be there for it. So the competition around him for target share is not going away anytime soon. He had almost identical receptions and touchdowns the last 2 years. So you're getting consistency, which is a good point when trying to trade a guy away. You can market some of the things that he's done well. Get out now. Dalton Schultz to me isn't interesting for a mediocre team. He's not interesting for a team that's tanking. I am a Dalton Schultz owner, and I am trying to trade this man like crazy. Not only from I'm trying to get one. I'm trying to pull a fast one. Like he is like a good player. He has fantasy relevance. He can pay dividends for a team that trades for him. I'm that team that's traded him away.
Yeah, I think they're gonna murder each other. I think everybody on that offense is just gonna eat into each other's production. So I don't necessarily disagree with this. I think this is one of the cases where it is kind of like you said, where it could be maybe beneficial for somebody.
Yeah.
A lot of it depends on the price tag.
Yep.
What you're trading away from and how much he's being paid in your dynasty league. So I think maybe this one you look at some of those things more closely. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thought process. I do think that for me, I still think he's a better bet than Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, because of red zone,
the position and the route tree, and just I don't think they affect each other that much. But overall, I do you can kind of count on him losing like 12% of his targets or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
to me, it's just uninteresting, and he's got good stats the last few years. He's on probably his last like legitimate contract. It's just not something that I want to keep around on my team. I'm trying to like actively trade away Dalton Schultz for Tajay Spears in a second-round pick. So just a little food for thought on what I'm looking for in a trade for Dalton Schultz. But yeah, trying to get rid of the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can get something for him right now, and I think he's got the stats, but I don't think he has the skill. Like he's an unusual tight end. David Njoku is an athletic freak who has improved every year.
Yeah.
Dalton Schultz isn't any of those things.
And those guys are pretty comparable right now in rankings, and I would definitely keep Njoku. Yeah. I would not keep Schultz.
I mean, Dallas let him go for basically a second-year player
for basically a younger Schultz.
Yeah, I mean Jake Ferguson. Yeah, I think you can get something.
Yeah, he's never going to have the year that he had in Dallas that put him on the map for fantasy leagues. Depreciating asset. So, all right, that's the show. Thanks for sticking around. We appreciate you watching the entire thing. We hope you learned something. We would love to know who you're trying to trade away, who you're trying to trade for. Let us know if our takes are bad. Let us know what you want us to talk about next week, potentially. And follow us everywhere on the internet at GON Podcast. We'd love to hear from you there as well. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you on the next one. See ya.